All right, so while I'm sitting here waiting, do anybody have any questions in the chat? Do anybody have any question or any comments in the chat while I'm waiting? All right, so while I'm waiting, let's play one more video from York. Well, that's part of. All right, hold on. Okay, here you go. All right, let me go ahead and put you in here. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Rahul back. Rahul back, sister. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So, what's going on? What's up? I'm sorry, my screen is out, so that's why you can't see
You
me.
all right? You good? You good?
Okay.
You good,
So
sister? You
now,
good?
I
Hold
want
on.
you.
Go
I'm
ahead. Go
sorry.
ahead. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Okay, so brother, peace. I'm glad that you're here. So I want you to explain your position. Or why did you feel that I was wrong for what I said about Reverend Ike's teaching is better than Dr. Yours?
Why I felt that? Well,
Yeah.
actually, what I said was, I said I made your statement, and then I said to make that comparison wouldn't be good because if you go back and read this my statement, because Dr. York has taught on several different levels beyond theology. Now, I was hearing you saying you was parsing over the comparison of the two doctrines, right? Or what you consider the doctrines. I believe you said Reverend Ike is what you would call a new age.
No, new thought movement. New thought.
Okay, new thought movement. It all traces back to the new age movement. But all right, the new thought. Okay, so based off his theology. So let me ask you, what is Reverend Ike's theology
Reverend
or
Ike.
his new age thought?
Okay, so Reverend the theology was more so teaching about seeing yourself as a God from a psychology standpoint and teaching about prosperity. That was his whole thought. So when he was using the Bible, he was using the Bible to teach from psychology as opposed to using it as theology. So he was taking like certain part of the scripture to pretty much validate his points and his argument. Because his whole thing is, if you want to become successful, if you want to become prosperous, right, you got to be able to change your way of thinking. You have to change how you view things about yourself and about life in general, and be able to go out there and get it. So basically his whole point is that there is no God in the sky that's going to come and give you what you want. You have to go get it for yourself. So if you want to pray to God, you have to seek within, and you have to look within oneself and not try to look outside of self. That was his whole thing.
And I agree. I agree. It is not. Excuse me. Excuse me. This is. Excuse me. I'm on it. I have to close this. It's raining out here anyway. Sorry about that, sis. That's the kid.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, I agree with everything you said in regards to his teachings, his methodology. And in many ways, I'm inspired by that because obviously we as a people, we know how important it is on a psychological level. The ability to develop, learn, and practice psychic self-defense with all the different things that we're up against, right? So I don't disagree with you in regards to anything of that matter pertaining to Reverend Ike. And just let me state for the record, I'm not against Reverend Ike. I was just making my comment based off your statement. Because again, where is the comparison? So you stated what you said. So here's Dr. York, right? Or who people have come to know him as Malachi Z York. So my first question to you, have you done any research on Dr. York beyond what has been heard, what you've heard, and then went and looked into what you heard about him, as opposed to actually going and doing the research on him, the individual, his background, his history, how he became the leader he became, if one may look at him as a leader, whether it be spiritual, educational, whatever. But the man taught on so many different levels. Now, when we talk about new age thought, that's what he was all about. It was all about us coming into the new age thought as it pertains to this cycle, right? because I heard you use the term science. Okay, and science comes from the root word sci, which means to know. So, what do we know about science in relation to nature and how nature comes about? This is what Dr. Malachi's whole basis in philosophy was on. Now, underlying that, his understanding or his overstanding is that we as original people, right, as the original peoples, as the original founders of this planet Earth, this solar system, this galaxy, this universe, this multiverse, this omniverse, as non-ether beings, we are the progeny who inherited all the rights, knowledge, and everything that comes with this planet. I don't think we have to go back and forth about that, whether that's a proven fact or not, because it is. So, in his strategy, right, what a lot of people don't understand is the history of what we call politics, philosophy, religion, right? Coming from an Eastern to a European back to what we now may now call the Americas, right, or the new land as they call it. So, what he was giving us was the history. So when you start to do a comparative study of the history, and when I say a comparative study, that means language, that means culture, that means tradition, that means knowing your blood type, your tribe, who you are, where you came from. That's truth. This is what he was teaching us. So he took us through the many schools of thought because, and I'm gonna come back to the point of what you call psychology, right? Freeing of one's mind, right? Because the word sight, the root word of the word sight is soul, right? It means to delve into the mind, the soul, where the soul dwells. Okay. So we're dealing with the science of the mind, the psyche. So everything that he did was intentions to do what? To heal us of that negative psyche, that disease psyche. That disease psyche, many of it, much of it, which was placed on us through that slave trade when we are being indoctrinated and told that we are not the true and living gods of the planet Earth or of the universe, etc., but yet we are something lower, different, right? And we should accept our plight as being slaves, not just in America, but throughout the world. Let's keep that in mind also, that we as a people are not just looked at this way in America, we're looked at this way all over the world. And the reason being is because of people's mental perception of us. What are they first mental perception? These people do not have a culture. Christianity is not our culture, right? Rev Ike taught his philosophy and his understanding of his science of life through Christianity. That's not a problem, right? Dr. York did the same thing. Now, Dr. York started out his community. His community started out as the Islamic uh, Hebrews, right? Then he went into the Nubian Islamic Hebrews, Ansarullah community. Then we went from there to HTM, from HTM to the ancient mystic order, etc., etc. So there was a gradual progression through these different schools of thought, religious philosophies, as well as political strategies that has been placed on it. So this was a psychological war because when we start to understand the mind state of our people in relation to other people and how we got to this state, then we have the only way to correct this state is we have to travel back through how we got here. That's language. So what did Malachi Z York do with the language? He came, he started teaching us the language. What I mean by that, he started teaching us the language and the scriptures, that the language of the scriptures was revealed. Okay? That's not to be taken lightly. So I ask you, did Reverend Ike do that?
Well, no, Reverend I didn't have to
Uh-oh,
go.
I'm just hold on,
Wait,
sister.
wait,
Did he
wait a
do
minute.
that?
Let me answer your question. Reverend I didn't
Hold on,
have.
sister. I'll let you lay your base. I'm laying my premise.
I let you have
Let me
all
lay
the
my
say. You
premise.
asked me a question though. You asked me a question. No,
Go ahead, sister.
he
Go ahead.
didn't
You
have to
got
do all. No, Reverend I didn't have to do all that. He didn't do all that because I mean, he stuck to one thing and he was very consistent. Whereas Dr. York went through all these different schools of thoughts, and then his teaching started to change up over time, which brought
okay,
about
and
some
that's what
confusion.
right. And that's what I was explaining. As we went through these different schools of thoughts or religious schools of thoughts or religious philosophies, right? He educated and taught us on each level the language, the culture, the customs, the tradition, so that we would be able for ourselves to now go back, reinvestigate, because now we know the actual language that the scripture was revealed in. Not the translation, not the transliteration, but the actual language. So we had whole communities of babies, young adults to grown people who were learning the language in which the scriptures were revealed in. One point. And I'm bringing that point because that's not something that Reverend Ike did, or as you say, he didn't have to do. Okay. Second point, while doing that, right, still yet building up a community, bringing resources to the community, all the while promoting and marketing Nubian culture, philosophy, and history. Not just from him, because I heard you say, oh, he was stealing lessons, this, that, and the third. How could you steal what's yours, sister? So you think that the Nation of Islam came with something original? The 5% Nation of Gods and Earth came with something original? This is our culture. These were our lessons prior to any of these individuals, including Dr. York. So to make those type of statements, he was stealing and plagiarizing. How do you plagiarize something that's originally
Okay,
yours?
so you
It's
tell
well,
me that
oh
he didn't
sister,
get all
it's
his.
well documented. Listen what I'm saying. It's well documented, well documented, especially in this day of time with the age of technology and how fast we can gather information and codify it. It's simply and easy to look up and look into exactly what he was really doing and why these peoples was on that man the way he was doing, because he was actually breaking the psychological links that was on our nine ether mind. Not to
Oh,
just be a Christian with the excuse me, not to just be a Christian with the highest understanding of a Christian God, right? Because in Christianity they teach that. You saying that was Reverend Ike, new thought age and new thought
well,
reality. It
the
wasn't.
average
Jesus
Christian.
taught, oh sister, Jesus taught that in the Bible, that ye are gods. And before Jesus, Solomon said ye are gods. And before Solomon, right, you had Moses who was made of God. So I'm striving to understand and know. And before Reverend Ike, I can name off several people who had
Mm-hmm.
that same approach, that same philosophy. We can go down the list. Daddy Grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Daddy Grace,
Mm-hmm.
Father Divine, etc., etc. So this is not nothing new. Our people have always been, at the top levels where we educate ourselves. We will always rise to the higher ranks as leaders of being outspoken or the ability to use, what we would call swift rhetoric to be able to attract and entice the people. But now when we get down into the deep roots of the philosophy, the science of the philosophy itself, where does it lead you? Right? Because it has to be leading you somewhere. So if you're saying that Reverend Ike method, right, was very conducive in work, then I would agree with you. I'm not in disagreeing with Reverend Ike and what he was saying because I understand the base of his philosophy. I understand the underlying science that he was teaching beyond the religious rhetoric to know
Mm-hmm.
thyself. That's not
Mm-hmm.
something new that Reverend Ike came with. Tons of people before him. Some we just named. You named Drew Ali, right? Can't forget about Marcus Garvey. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people. So if you go back in the day and time when Reverend Ike was teaching, and keep in mind, Dr. Malachi Z York L was also teaching at that time. At that time, Dr. Malachi Z York L had already translated the Quran from the Arabic, right? The Torah, or what they call the Tanakh, from the Hebrew Aramaic, etc., etc. At this time, that you say that Reverend Ike was doing his teachings and teaching prosperity, which is love. I want to keep emphasizing I'm not against Reverend. I was just opposed to the statement that we have to compare our leaders to say that one is this and one is not that. When
Well,
would you start to
I made
look
that
at, hold on,
comparison
sister,
for a
when you
reason,
start to
though.
look at this individual, we talk about Dr. York. You have to take him in whole. You can't be taking bits and pieces from here, bits and pieces from there, read an article here, article there. Then you bring a Sam on there. He has much bias, right? Too many biases. But it's ill how we're quick to point out what he did or didn't do in the wrong, but all the other things that he did do, that was right. So we discredit the lessons, the teachings. We don't go and do a thorough enough study and research on it to be able to really say whether what he was teaching was right or wrong. Now we understand his case. So many people are turned off by that. Nobody wants to support anybody who was
Mm-hmm.
considered or found guilty of child molestation. But
Mm-hmm.
we know this country, we know these people, we know their politics, and we've seen it time and time again. Now, for the last 20 something years, you
Mm-hmm.
have all the detractors against Dr. York or the Nubian nation or now the Sabaean nation, where people have consistently attacked not just Dr. York, but Dr. York, his family, and his tribesmen, those who aligned themselves with him, right? Walk with him step by step, help him build this. Y'all don't take in consideration all those people. It's impossible for y'all to think that this one man did all this by himself. So when we speak of Dr. York and we speak about what he taught and how he helped raise us up, that's very important to take a knowledge of. To swipe over that to say, oh, he was just a child molester, he was a hustler, he was stealing and plagiarizing, stop it. Name any other leader came to you was speaking the
Okay,
language of
hold on. Let me ask
clarity.
you a question. Let me ask you something. All right.
Go ahead, sister.
So now nobody's taking away some of the good things that York has done, but should we just overlook those negative
No, that's what
things?
I'm saying. No, not at all. You. It's only right that you. That's why I keep saying do a thorough investigation. A thorough investigation,
Now
right?
let me say
We
this
got
to
to get
you.
like. Listen, what I'm saying, sister. We got to get like these people get. When these people investigate us, how do they investigate? They learn to know everything about you, not bits and pieces. He said, she said,
Okay,
or what I read
let
an
me tell you.
article over
I
here,
used to deal with
article
the
over there.
Nuwapians.
Uh huh.
I used to build with Nuwapians all the time. You know, I used to talk to
Okay.
Nuwapians all the time. At one point in
Yes.
time, I wanted to join the Nuwapian Nation because I thought it
Okay.
was just very beautiful. I thought they were very creative. But then
Uh huh.
once I found out about this, then that made me reconsider to join the
Okay. What
Nuwapian
did you
Nation.
find out? If I may ask that question.
What we were just discussing about the whole case, about the whole child molestation, whatnot. That's why I reconsidered that because I said,
Okay, and that's
let
fair,
me fall
love.
back
That's
on
fair.
that. I don't want to join
No, no, no,
something.
no, 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 no. That's totally fair. I would not espouse or inspire or aspire anyone
Mhm.
to get into something where they have this doubt. So you didn't do nothing wrong by that,
Right,
right?
right.
But what you did do, sister, is you went to the other side. You saw the good. What made it good to you was the lessons, was the teaching. So now, my next question is to you. After
Hmm.
you told me that, I don't understand. But you made mention of plagiarization. Teacher showed me the plagiarization. Where did he plagiarize from?
Okay, if we
Because the
look,
last time I
let's,
saw, listen what I'm saying. The last time I checked, just like I told you, everything he did it and translated from the source. So let's look at the Nation of Islam lessons, right? The
mhm.
120 or what we call the supreme wisdom, right?
Okay,
He didn't
okay,
take and plagiarize their lessons. If anything, what he did was he upgraded them. He brought the real history to them. He made them to where they make factual sense, right? Not just these outdated, can't be proven, unfactual things. There's a lot of things in those lessons that cannot be proven, will not be proven because they're just not factual. Sound good, feel good, and that's love. That
so
all
what did
comes
he
with being
upgrade?
creative.
What did he
Huh?
upgrade? What exactly did he upgrade as
He
far as the list?
upgraded the information to the
So
outformation.
okay, such
Hmm.
as give me an example what he upgraded.
Okay, if you go through each of the lessons, right, dealing with the supreme wisdom of the 120, right, he gives you the historical factors. So I'm gonna give you an example. We're gonna go to. Are you familiar with the Nation of Islam teachings,
Yes.
the core root teachings? Because you know they have their other lessons and teachings that the public don't have no privy to. You understand that?
You said they have a teaching called what?
They have other teachings that is taught only to the members that others outside are not privy to.
Okay, well, I'm
Okay,
not
so
a
because you
member
hear
of
a
the
lot of people
nation.
saying the Nation of Islam teaches and all that, and don't know the Nation of Islam teachings.
Okay, well,
You know
whatever they teach
what
on
you
the inside,
see.
that part I'm not familiar. I'm only familiar with the ones
Okay,
that I have came across.
okay. So in these lessons, and let me make mention, many of them don't know the lessons thoroughly enough, right?
Okay,
Again,
that's it.
so but now when you delve into, we just gonna go to there's lessons, right? It's called the Lost and Found Muslim lessons. See, right? The first degree, the knowledge degree, and what they call the student enrollment, 1 to 10. While I'm doing this, you may could call somebody else on or look into it, anything that I'm saying to cross reference to see if what I'm saying is correct. But they have what is called the student enrollment. Okay. So in the student enrollment, the first degree says, who is the original man? The answer is, right, the original man, the supreme being Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. That's the first underlying principle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it again.
Mm-hmm.
The supreme being Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. Okay? And I'm establishing that base because that's general and universal to all of us. Am I clear with that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these lessons don't belong to anyone. Let's start there. They didn't
I hear.
belong to anyone. We respect those who brought it, who opened, who had the key to open that. to allow us to look in there and see the treasures that's in there. But to say that this is something new, no, because we know for surety many of our ancient civilizations and cultures, and many of us are starting to learn now that they've always identified with themselves being the supreme being God of the heavens and the earth. And they were able to show forth and prove that by the ability to display their intellectual as well as their building skills through architecture, etc., etc. So I don't think those things are discrepancy. So when we talk about the first foundation in being what you would call a Muslim, right, under the Nation of Islam, that's the foundation. You have to know that you are the supreme being, Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
saying this, sister? I'm saying this because those lessons is general to me, you, and anyone else
Mm.
because it's information. Now, when you take it and you codify it and you give it a structure and a system, now you're talking about the Nation of Islam. Am I correct? Now we're talking about the Nation of Islam. When we're talking about the Nation of Islam, when we're talking about these lessons, the lesson starts out in the beginning, lets you know. Then there's historical factors in dealing with that same lesson, how we got here, right? They talk about the 23 wise scientists. One of those 23 wise being Granddaddy Shabazz, right? Who took a tribe, took them into the wilderness, right, of Africa. There's wilderness in Africa? That's just a question.
What in Africa?
Is there wilderness or what they call, he said he took them into the wilderness or what they call the jungles of Africa?
I mean, do Africa have jungles? Is what you
No,
asking
no,
me?
no, no. Yeah.
I mean, last time I checked, what they call the jungles is nothing more than the tropical area. It's more tropical in Africa.
Okay, so that would mean that statement about he took them into the wilderness of the jungles of Africa, right? And trained and raised the people who became known as the lost tribe of Shabazz, who they consider to be us over here now. Now I'm giving you Nation of Islam philosophy, doctrine, beyond just the general informational lessons. Now I'm giving you their doctrine. See, there's the
Okay.
difference.
Okay, somebody made a
Go ahead.
comment on here. Somebody put
Uh
also
huh.
Nation of Gods and Earth made him remove the book.
Made him remove the book. What?
Uh I'm guessing maybe the
The
person
renewal
was
of the lessons. Which one? Or the
uh
one he put in the paperback? Yeah, I mean, see, here we go. It made him. How do you make somebody remove the book?
I think what the person is saying that maybe like the members of Nation Gods of Earth made Dr. York remove the
No, no,
lesson.
no. They didn't make him remove anything. The
I'm
brothers and
thinking that's
sisters
what he's
was
saying.
upset.
I'm way
No, no, no. And I'm well aware. I'm well familiar with that topic, right?
yeah.
So again, let me explain this to you. I hope whoever the
Mhm.
individual is listening and hear what I'll say clear. No one
Okay,
made
he
Dr.
talking
York.
about on the lesson. He said on the lesson.
Right. I know what he's talking about, but
Yeah.
again, no one made Dr. York remove anything. Like, just make that make sense. They made Dr. York remove the book. No, he put out the book. They became upset about it, obviously, right? Wanted to become violent. And in order to stop a war between both said nations, Dr. York decided, okay, I'll remove the book out of respect. And y'all can do what y'all want to do with y'all lessons. Okay, but let's keep in mind, those same lessons of the nation of gods and earth, where did they get them from? Initially and originally.
You said the same lessons. The what
The
you talking about
same
the
lesson.
you talking about the 120 supreme lesson?
Well, they got, on their eight-star flag, right, which represents their nation, they have 8 points. Each 8 points represent a different degree. But I'm saying that structural system, that curriculum system that Father Allah brought to them was not original, right?
Well,
Yeah,
you
he
know,
brought
Father
it.
Allah started off in the Nation of Islam.
This is what I'm getting you to look at. So
Yeah,
what's
he started off.
original here?
So yeah, that 120 supreme lesson, yes, that
Yeah,
came out the school of the Nation of
right.
Islam, and it was
Exactly.
incorporated
The
into the Nation
understanding of it, as they
doctrine.
call the supreme wisdom, and that's what the supreme wisdom is based on, bringing us a clarity, understanding to get to an understanding of what we call 120. But we have what is called 120 wisdom, 120 knowledge, 120 understanding, right? That's 360 degrees, man, woman, child, sun, moon, and stars, right? So we understand that we can go throughout history and see our ancestors in other cultures talk about the sun, moon, and stars, man, woman, child, one, two, three, A, B, C, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm saying is, when we talk about plagiarizing something, how can you plagiarize what has already been? Now,
I
many have
mean, because
took
you
it
can
from
just
that.
copy from other individuals, and other individuals can copy from each other. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but
So,
when you say, okay, okay, and that's fair. And I'll be one to admit that, yes, Dr. York has used others' information in his books
ah,
as a point. Oh, excuse me. But when he uses their information, doesn't he tell you where it comes from? Read any of the books. See, this is why I don't understand how people get caught up in this, man. When you read his books, if he makes a statement of information coming from somewhere, someone else, which is to make a cross reference and base it to what he's saying in this now reality, right? They call that thorough research. He cites where he got it from, the author, the place, and where you can go find it. In fact, his greatest saying is, "Don't believe me, go check it out." So I'm trying to figure out where's the plagiarization at. Plagiarization is when somebody doesn't give you the authority to use something and you use it against their will. That's plagiarizing and changing it around. Where did he change any of the lessons? He used their information in regards to the lesson that he's teaching, cited them, cited where you can go and get it from in the books. And I'll say this, no one has ever done that until Dr. York. Just do the research, right? Because we talking about threefold education, which many of us as Nubians in the Northwest Hemisphere don't get the real threefold education,
what?
right? We
What you
don't
mean
even
by
really get
that?
an education,
What you
huh?
mean by that? What you mean we don't get the real threefold
Well, our
education?
ancestors, well, our ancestors taught us science of how we go about educating, based off our genetics, right? And there's a threefold. There's levels, sort of like what you have in the Masonic degrees, right? They have entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason, right? Now that's a plagiarization because that was something that was took and stolen, right, and put back out to the public as if it was theirs when it wasn't. But just using those degrees and these three degrees that show you that there's what? Stages and degrees in how you learn anything based off curriculum. So we had what was known as Aten or Aton, right? Which they call the Most High Sun or the Sun God. Then you have Atum, Amun, and Anun. Each four stages, right? Now think about the American school system, right? We go through what? We started what? Preschool, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we go from preschool?
You go to kindergarten,
From kindergarten,
and then you go to first grade. Then you go to
which would be
second
middle
grade.
school,
What?
right?
No, first grade
Yeah,
is
that's
not
middle
middle school.
school.
It's elementary.
I mean, elementary. I'm thinking about sixth, but from there you go to what? The next grade is what? Sixth grade, the next level, right? Middle school, so
Right.
forth and so on. This
Yeah.
system, as I just showed you, comes from us. So again, when we sit back and we start saying, "Oh, he plagiarized this, plagiarized that," further, we shouldn't use that term anytime we're dealing with, the Picasso or the European. Their whole history in life has been plagiarized. Let's just be clear. So anything
Oh
took it
yeah.
back from them, huh?
I say yeah. I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay, so we can negate that aspect of plagiarization, but I'm being firm on this because we can't be using these terms loosely. We got to thoroughly investigate, understand the terminology, the etymology, and the historical use of it before we just start labeling people and saying that they're this, they're that, and they're that. No, that's not how that works. What Malachi Z York used, he used the world-renowned, universal, right, threefold education system as it pertains to here in the Western Hemisphere. He used religion because religion is our base education here in the Western Hemisphere. These are the first things we learn in our household. Along with Mama and Papa, we learn about that mystery God. We learn about that mystery Son of God, etc., etc., etc. So that's the basis of your education, which ties us back into the psychology, like you said, Reverend Ike, his psychological, right, addressing of these matters was helping for us to understand what they would
Hmm.
call the esoteric meanings behind the sayings of the Bible. Because I'm sure and I know for a fact that Reverend Ike was a free master mason himself. Most church pastors are. They go through theology school. They learn certain things. They learn the curriculum how to teach. Align that with they learn in the Masonic order, they learn what is called the seven liberal arts. They learn the science of grammar, they learn the science of rhetoric, logics, dialectics, They learn mathematics, they learn music, and they learn astrology. These are the systems that they use in order to control us, they, them, and all.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Now,
Hmm.
you spoke about language, right? You said that Dr. York was taking language and putting them into translation and whatnot. All right.
No,
So,
what I said was he was translating, right, the
mm-hmm,
scriptures from their original language,
mm-hmm.
meaning. But go ahead, let me finish your question.
Okay, so the question is, how do you explain the language of Nuwapu
Nuwapu is the original ancient language,
coming
right?
from where?
Coming from Nubia. I'm gonna point you to a link. Beautiful, that is great that you asked that question, right? Because right now we in what we call the sun cycle, the new cycle, the cycle of Sabat. And as well, it's been proven Sabat means Orion, the Orion skies, et cetera, which we say as Nawapi and Sabians, we acknowledge and know that our ancestors came from those stars, right? And came here and did what they did. But that's neither here right now. So when we say translating from the original language, so he took the original language that these scriptures was revealed in, not the plagiarized transliteration from what you would call the Greek, well, actually Latin to Greek, back to Latin, and then et cetera, what we now call English, right? So he took it back. What language was the scriptures originally, as we was taught, was revealed into us? And that's a question.
You said what language?
Yeah, what language was the scriptures that we know of? And I'll just say this: Bible, Quran, and the Torah or the Tanakh. These are the three main books or religions that we're influenced by. So, what languages were these books translated or transcribed in originally?
All right. So, from what we know about the Bible, at one point it was Hebrew or Yiddish, and
No, no,
then
no. So you said Hebrew.
yeah, and then
Because
you
Yiddish
had
definitely
Greek,
didn't exist then.
huh? You
Because
say what?
Yiddish didn't exist then.
Okay, well they call it Yiddish, but all right.
But
Well,
that's modern.
we gonna
That's
go along there. Okay, Phoenician language. What about the Phoenician language?
yes. Well, the Phoenician language is what is called the Aramaic, the Syriac,
Okay, okay,
Arabic. All of these are listen. All of these are what they would call, the Afro-Semitic dialects or languages.
okay, okay.
Right?
We'll go
So
with
we
that.
can say, hold on, hold on. They say this. Listen to this, sister. These is what they call the Afro-Asiatic
Mm-hmm.
languages and dialects
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
the scriptures were written in.
Okay.
Okay. Now continue. Just take
Okay.
note of that.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. You're right. Yeah, the Hebrew and Arabic language come from the root language of Aramic, which is considered
Okay.
as the Afro-Asiatic language family. Okay, I
Okay.
give
And
you that.
why is it considered that?
Why is it considered that?
Yes, because you brought up the Canaanite. The Phoenicians and the Canaanites are one of the same people, which are still us. This is part of what we call the Nubian migration, right? Because it's well proven, well documented,
Mm-hmm.
where you can see the migration of the Nubians from a specific place. This place we now start calling this place Nuapia because that's what they call it. You can find this in the ancient texts of the Egyptians, of the Arabs, etc., etc., etc. So this brings out the important
I
reason
was
why
going to say that it
Dr.
was through comparative method. And with
Huh?
comparative, I said the reason why the concept of Afro-Asiatic language came about is because of the comparative method, which you deal with the lexicon, you deal with the semantic,
That's
you
right.
deal with the
That's right.
morphology,
That's right.
and you dealing with the phonology.
Chronology. That's right.
Phonology, yes, yes,
So you got it, sister. So now I
yeah.
want you to apply those rules, right,
Mm-hmm.
to Dr. York and see what you get. See how that
Okay,
works?
so because Dr. York's language, which is called Nuwapu,
No, 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 no. We ain't the whole sister.
hold
We
on,
ain't get
let's
to
just
Nuwapu yet. We
no.
ain't don't we gonna come back to Nuwapu. We gonna come though. I'm just
We gotta
saying we
ask
gotta
the
set it,
questions. How did Nuwapu came into existence, though?
and I'm about to answer that. But this really you gonna answer it for yourself. Like I said, apply that same method. Now let me ask you this, right? Because you mentioned Yiddish. How long has Yiddish been around? Modern Hebrew.
How long has Yiddish?
Somebody in the chat anywhere, just do a quick type research. Yiddish.
Okay. We'll find out how long have Yiddish been a
You
language.
have somebody in the chat or somewhere pull it up for us right quick. Yes, the
Okay.
Yiddish. 'Cause we got to use definitive examples.
Okay. Well, we're gonna go ahead and pull it up right now. I'm
Yes,
gonna pull it up
please.
for you right now. Let me pull it up for you. All right. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Okay. Let's put up the origin of the Yiddish language.
Uh-huh. And how it came about. That's right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So now,
Give us a synopsis.
can't you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I said no. Give us a synopsis. Okay.
Okay. All right. So Yiddish is a West Germanic language historically spoken by the Azinat. What is it? What do you call these people?
Ashkenazi.
Ashkenazi
Ashkenazi.
Jews. Thank you.
Right.
Ashkenazi Jews. It originated
Mm-hmm.
from ninth century. Central Europe, providing the Nascent Ashkenazi community
Under
with
the Khazars.
based on
Right.
High German, fused with many elements taken from Hebrew and to some
Ah.
extent Aramic. So
Ah.
most varieties of Yiddish include elements of Slavic languages, and the vocabulary contains traces of Romance languages. Yiddish is primarily written in the Hebrew alphabet.
Mm. So it's not the Hebrew language. They use Hebrew what?
They use Hebrew alphabet.
Okay. So
Okay,
what is Yiddish and what is Hebrew Aramaic? See the difference?
so what is what?
Okay, so now I should talk about how they came about developing what they call Yiddish.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm saying you can continue.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, cool. All right. So again, it says by the 10th century, a distinctive Jewish culture had formed in Central Europe. By the high medieval period, their area of settlement centered on Rhineland and was it Palatinate came to be known as Akazna or Akanaz, originally term used
Ashkenaz, right.
yeah, a term originally used as Sathia and later various areas of Eastern European and Anatolia. So it says in the
Anatolia,
medieval
right.
Hebrew of Rashi, Akanaz becomes a term for Germany and Akhenazi for the Jews settling in this area. Right, so
Mm-hmm.
Akanaz border on the area inhabited by another distinctive Jewish cultural group, the was it Sephardi Jews, the Sephardi Jews?
Sephardim, right.
Yeah, Sephardi Jews
Those are the ones who over in
into southern,
Spain, Portugal. Mm-hmm.
right, who ranged into southern France. Ashkenazi
Mm-hmm.
culture later spread into Eastern Europe with large scale population migration. All right, so now how do we get from that point to where Dr. York had the Nuwapu language? How does that work?
Okay. What I'm showing you is how people structure and what they do is they revive what is called a dead link. So
Mm.
what Dr. Wolf is doing, he's reviving what is called a dead language. Look up what a dead language is, please.
Okay, let's look that up. We'll go along with that. All right, let's look up their language. Okay.
Meaning it just hasn't been in use for a very long time. And the elements, the roots of it,
Okay, so it
because
says, in contrast, a dead language is one that is no longer the native language of any community, even if it's still in use.
hmm. So what is a dead language?
I just gave you the definition. It's
A language
one
that is no longer what?
is no longer native language. It's no
No
longer a
longer.
native, yeah, no longer
Okay,
a native language of any community, even if it's still in use, like Latin, for example.
exactly.
Hmm.
Right? And people still call themselves Latin Americans and all this other craziness. But anyway,
Hmm.
right.
Okay.
Okay, so you dead. You considering yourself Latin, you dead. So now look up how to revive a dead language, dead languages. In fact, you can look up our dead languages, look up the revival of Hebrew.
Okay, so is that gonna get to the point of the Nuwapu language?
Yes, you have to understand. Yes, it is. Because what I'm telling you, he's reviving a dead language. So first point is to know that
So
it is
what
a language.
language is he reviving?
Sabi, Sabbatic, Nuwapi, or Nuwapic,
Sabbatic.
which is right, which is the original terms in the original languages
How you
of the
spell sabbatic?
original hieroglyphs. Huh?
How you spell that? Sabbatic.
Sabbatic, S A double A. Put a double A.
Uh huh.
Batic, Sabbatic, which
B
is the
A
Latin form
I
of
C.
English literation, right? Of Sabia, or Sabbat, right?
You say it's Sabbatic.
Yes, Sabbatic, right?
Okay, let's see.
Or Saba, you could put in Saba.
Oh yeah, it's actually spelled with double B.
Double what?
So wait a minute, you mean sabbatic or as in S
No,
A
not as a sabbatical. No, no. That's why I said SAABATIC.
D?
BATIC. Sabah.
Okay, let's
You
see.
never heard of the Sabaean? The Sabaean people? Sabah. This is an ancient history, ancient practices still going on to this day.
Okay,
Again, this
so
is
the
a
only thing
revival.
that's showing up is sabbatical.
Okay, maybe you.
Wait a
Okay.
minute, let me try it again. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. Yeah, the only thing showing up is sabbatical. Or let's see if
Well,
are
that,
you
we know that's definitely not what we're looking for. I mean, we could come back to that because the important thing is I want to explain to you
uh,
how and why Dr. York is bringing what they saying is his language. He didn't create anything. He's reviving it.
okay, yeah, there's no such language. So
Hmm?
yeah, I
So
mean
there's no Sabaeans. So in the Quran, okay, it
you
said there's
said
no such
Sabia,
thing.
right? Let's
Sabah, right? Not SABB, SAA or SABA, Sabah. You can spell it that way. I mean, but this is the actual word in itself is actually Spanish, it's actually Latin, right? Same thing we just went through. So it's actually a transliteration of the word sabtu or sabat, which would be the demotic or the hieroglyphic way of saying the actual terms. And you can find this language in the actual glyphs. In fact, you can find with what we call meduneta. This is what it was actually called because you do know the
Oh, you mean
meduneta was not
Medunetta.
right. But no, what I'm saying is you do know that the meduneta was not the spoken language of the people. This is why you
Well,
have
then what
heretics,
language was it?
demotic, and Coptic. Excuse me.
I said, so what language was it if it wasn't the Medunetta?
They spoke Sabbatic, Septu. They tell you this. We gonna come through this. This is gonna have to be a couple days. This is not something we can go through just in 1 second. So we can revisit certain topics if they not made clear today.
That's interesting.
Hmm. But let's get back to our understanding of how languages die and how they are revived.
Okay. That's okay. Go ahead. I'm listening.
So okay, so now we understand what a dead language is, correct? To
Mm-hmm.
some degree. So now let's look into the revival of language. In fact, look into the revival of the Hebrew language. Because
Oh,
obviously it died at a point.
okay. You want to go into the revival of the Hebrew language? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because my point is, when you just define to me how linguistics works, if you use that same process, you would be able to clearly see what Dr. York was doing. A true master teacher.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's look up and look into how to
Okay.
revive a dead language, or are dead
Okay. Let's
languages being revived today?
let's look
Hmm.
up. Okay, I'm looking up revival of the Hebrew language. So it says the revival of
Ah.
Hebrew language took place in Europe and Palestine towards the end of the 19th century and into the
Hmm.
20th century, through which the language's usage changed from the sacred language of Judaism to a spoken and written language used for daily life in Israel.
Okay, which we know, they just told us how they did that through Yiddish, correct? And they
Hmm.
used the Hebrew alphabet. And when we say the Hebrew alphabet, keep in mind they was also still using the modern Hebrew alphabet and not the ancient, what they would call ancient Phoenician Canaanite dialect or alphabets. That's a key. So now what we have here is we understand that, right? Languages live, languages die, and languages can be revived, correct?
Hmm.
So now what I want to look into is what's the method of reviving a language? Bringing it back to life, resurrecting it. Because you can only die once. At least that's what they say.
You tell me.
Huh?
You tell me.
Tell you what.
What is the method?
No, the method is we need to pull it up because I want everybody to understand this because you brought it up. You said someone told you how the method goes. So if we analyzing this method, we should learn to know how to use it and research it. This is how we're able to do a comparative study to say whether this person was doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Okay, so
And this is all according to science. This is what we would call, okay, again, understanding how we deal with language.
Okay, so you want me to look into the revival of a language? Okay, got you. Okay,
Because
yeah,
all this would fall up under linguistics, right? Because you just explained to me the root key
yes.
elements of linguistics. Okay. So this topic about Dr. York having his own language, a made up language, like I don't know, how do you make a language up? And
I
if that's the
mean,
case,
because
then everybody today
I
has a
mean,
made
people
up
know
language.
language called Nuwapu. How often
Huh?
is it spoken? Is Nuwapu spoken in any other culture?
Well, no, I just told you, Duwapu is a dead language.
Oh, so it's a dead language. So therefore, it's not
Right.
spoken as a moment right now, right? I mean, it's still
No,
in
no,
use,
and
but
this is
it's
what
not.
he was doing. Right. This is what he was doing. He was reviving what we consider, right, our
Oh,
ancient language. You
oh,
understand?
oh.
Okay.
Okay. So now let me ask you some question.
Now, he would ask, was this ever a language? And then that's what I said. Then we would have to go into the historical documented research, cited research to show you that this is not a term. People still think the Wapu don't exist. Go into the archives of Congress, right? Start researching Harvard, all these Ivy School leads. Start reading the Arabic manuscripts, the Hebrew manuscripts. You see this terminology being used on a general basis for people, land, and language. So Luapu or Lupu, Luapu, Luapia, this is not something new. This is who
Mm,
we were prior to the advent of these peoples coming into our lands, us allowing them, right, to start intermingling, tying in a vine with us, and changing things around.
mm.
And of course, we know we could do a list and go down the history of how that took place. But we have to get a basic understanding and see this is what we're doing. We're not learning and studied in these sciences, right?
Mm.
So it would be good if we got a person who was studied and learned in linguistics for them to confirm whether what I'm saying is correct or not. Because what I'm doing is showing you how we do comparative study. We can only compare from what is there. So to say that this man is making up something already shows the premises are false.
Okay, so let me
And
ask
the reality that you can actually make up a language. We see these people come up with phonetics and phonics every
right,
day and put it
so
in the
you're saying that
dictionary.
Dr. York didn't come up with a language?
No, he's reviving the language.
Mm.
And then
Oh,
he told you, you have now go into the book. See, this is the reality, the realism of Dr. York. He didn't come misleading you. I'm bringing an ancient language. It's coming from the heavens and I divine. No, he actually told you what he was doing. He was using the Socratic or what you call the linguistic method in order to revive a dead language. So, in order to revive a dead language, the same way they just explained what those Yiddish Germans, Eastern Germans did, and how they revived their language. They took pieces and elements from what they considered to be of their original native land and tongue, and
mm-hmm,
they added it in. And then they used what? They used the Hebrew, not the ancient. Keep in mind, they made it clear they used the Hebrew
mm-hmm,
alphabets, not the ancient Canaanite alphabets, in which
mm-hmm,
the actual language came down and the scripture was revealed, right?
mm,
Because we could go all into the Hebrew. We know that there's no real such thing as a Hebrew. The root word of Hebrew comes from the root Ibar. This is why we got to know the word trilateral dual and all these things when we're talking about language, the
mm,
construction of language, right?
mm,
So when we're dealing with language, it'll be easily clear to see the roots of every word that Dr. Malachi Z York L has been teaching and using has roots to them. And the meaning means what they mean. But you know, we in America, so we learn vowels and consonants and all these other things, right? So now
okay.
we're using vowels and doing things that we shouldn't really be doing.
Okay, now let me
Okay,
ask you
well,
a
go
question.
ahead.
Now, speaking
Hmm.
of science, right? So somebody
Yes,
brought up something that was very important about science, technology, engineering, and arts and mathematics, right?
yes.
So, all right. So Dr. York in his book, which is called The Revelation of the Nuwapians, the Patara, the Way, right?
The way, yes.
He mentioned that the about the mitochondria DNA, right?
Yes.
Now, also he mentioned that down here, let's go down into his book on page I think was it page 2. He says
Hmm.
X becomes, he said, to get the Y chromosome out of an X chromosome, you lose one of your stems. He says X becomes Y, thus the chromosome is defective, which is why a man has the same components on his body that the women does. So, for example, the breast and nipple, however, men don't breastfeed. Men are a
Uh huh.
genetic defect of women. And this is how they prove mother was before father or female before male. They studied
Okay.
147 pregnant women and they donate their offspring placenta. The placenta is the easiest way to get large samples of body tissue.
Hmm.
So, so how did he come down to the conclusion that woman was first and not man? Or you know
He
what I'm
just
saying?
told you.
How did he come
He
down to
just
the
explained it
conclusion
to
that
you.
woman was first?
How?
Yeah.
Well, he's using what you call, right, in logic, they call deductive reasoning, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So when we deal with the science of logic, which is one of the seven liberal arts, logic and dialectics, right, you have what is called deductive reasoning. So let's just keep it simple, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
scientifically proven that the mitochondria only dwells in lives, and we not talk about the mitochondria because man has mitochondria too, but he doesn't have the mitochondria to reproduce children. So within the mitochondria of the woman is all the nutrients of life that is needed. Thus, she has the XX chromosome, right? It's been
Mm-hmm.
proven scientifically that the XX chromosome has more DNA genetic makeup than the Y chromosome, which is why he said he called it a defect, right? So it's clear that men cannot give babies. You can't born a child. Only the XX can born the child. Correct. So scientifically, this is what science is saying. So we can say he's saying this, but after making the statement, he also tells you where you can go again, research what he said. So we have to be able to research to use logic and deductive reasoning to know whether he's saying is scientifically sound or not. But we have a base. We have the XX and the XY chromosome. No one scientifically anywhere in the scientific community can deny the fact that the XX chromosome has more DNA, right, makeup than the XY chromosome. This is a fact. And it's been proven that somewhere along the line that this genetic defect took place. We say in our doctrine this is where the graft and the different things took place, where women ruled and controlled things prior to male. Now, when we say woman, we're talking about the feminine aspect because obviously the XX gives you the feminine quality in regards to the ability to childbirth. But that's not all the XX does. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not so much just talking about gender in relation to the male or the female. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
talking about what the DNA, the essence of us and what it does in its own intelligence. That's what we grow from.
Mm-hmm.
If that
Okay.
answers. Uh-huh.
All right. Now, also, he mentioned in this book, he says, the mother is God. She grows each being, male or female, in her raham, which is womb.
Uh-huh.
Without a
Yes.
male, she can't and did do it. This happened within the Bartholin gland of the female, which is
Exactly.
located on
Right.
either side of the vaginal orifice that secretes a lubricating mucus and are equivalent to the babulo-uteral glands in the male, which
Oh,
is located below the prostate, and it
yes.
discharges a component of the seminal fluid into the urethra. And then he also put the prostate secretes a thin milky fluid with a characteristic odor. This fluid constitutes the greater part of the semen that is deposited in the female vagina and that contains the spermatozoa.
Told Spermatozoa, right. The head of the sperm, right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So with
All
that
right, but
being
what's
said,
your question?
how can that be possible to give birth to a child without the other gender?
How is it well, he just explained it. I'll show you this, right? In the female, right? What do you do every month?
A woman has a menstrual cycle every month.
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Well, because the purpose of the menstrual cycle is to prepare the woman for ovulation.
For ovulation, right? So she releases any other thing that was there that didn't produce or give birth, right? Correct?
Well, she's
So it's a
basically.
cleansing period, right?
I'm sorry.
It's a cleansing period, right?
Yes, sort of. Yeah, but basically, it's like the wall of the uterine or
Yes.
the uterine wall. Yeah, it turns into a blood clot, and yeah, that
Right,
tissue that comes out the wall of the uterus turns to a blood clot, which comes out the vaginal canal.
right. Because during that cycle, there was no fertilization, there was no reproduction. Because had you got had sex or got pregnant during that cycle, what would have happened? You would have got pregnant, correct? So what this shows is the question is, okay, does the male? I'll simply say it this way: she already has, right, the seed within her. We've been taught to say that the male has the seed, which is we say the Y chromosome. But the Y chromosome is not the seed. What it does is it brings the other, right, genetic parts or identifiers or genetic markers, as they would say, to identify the gender between the male or the female. That's all the Y chromosome does. The male is either going to give the female an X chromosome, which will produce another female, or
Mm-hmm.
he's going to lend her a Y chromosome, which it becomes XY, and it becomes a male. Now, here's the key thing to it, right? Because we never look, we say science, but then we don't look into the science of science. That's what we call natural nature, right? Our science, we say this is the science of science and the science in science. So
Mm-hmm.
in that science, it's well clear. This is medically record documented, everything, right? That during this period, when the woman is ovulating and she doesn't produce, it's clear she has a menstrual, she has a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If or not, or when this takes place, she has actually already given birth. Her
She
body
giving birth
naturally,
how?
because her body naturally produced that congealed blood. That congealed blood, if it's met and connected by a Y chromosome, meaning if she accepts it into her womb, because the sperm doesn't just go into the vaginal, up the canal, and go straight to the womb. No, she has a wall there. She has a safekeeping. You should know better than me, right? And what it does around that wall, obviously, there's a magnetic, an electromagnetic field, and the wall starts to take out. So of those 777,777,777 sperm cells that travel up the canal, only one, right? And far and few do we have to, but only one of those spermatoses are accepted. It doesn't break in, right, of
Mm-hmm.
no sort. She lets him in. She brings him in. But before she can bring that Y or X other chromosome in, she has to check and make sure that it's compatible, since we say everything in its due season. If it's not compatible, it automatically sends out, right, warriors to destroy that. And I'm just using these terms as opposed to using the scientific terms. Because
Uh-huh.
I think everybody here understands and know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everything I said is actual fact. So where in this process is the man actually doing anything with his Y chromosome, other than the fact that, and we've already proven that it's a genetic defect by the fact that it has less what they call YAP DNA than the X chromosome, right? We can just compare X to a Y chromosome. We ain't even got to go XY, right? Or XX. So when we're looking at it this way, it's clearly proven. Science said this. See, we keep saying Dr. York said, but I keep hearing Dr. York referencing his scientific basis for this. And if we go and research these things, it'll be proven as a sound fact.
But he did say that a woman. I'm gonna go back to the
Hmm.
book. Go back to the little
Hmm.
pen. Okay. He did say that without a male, she can and did do it.
Yes, she did, because she has the XX chromosome in her. And there was a time, just like what you have today, right? You have certain
So you
species that
tell me at that
produce
time
certain
it was
X.
possible for a woman to get pregnant without a man?
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
I seen Mary do it. Didn't Mary do it? We accept
That's that's
Jesus.
that's fictitious.
Oh,
But that's fictitious. That's
huh?
not real. That's mythology. Did
That's
you do you
mythology?
actually believe that Mary actually got pregnant without a man?
Yes, it's possible. We see it happening every day. Interbelievers, it's happening right now.
Huh?
We see cloning and everything else going on. So I could see, why do we take
Wait
our
a minute.
peoples
Whoa,
and
whoa,
make
whoa,
them
hold
into
on.
basic?
Wait a minute. You said
Whoa,
it's
whoa, whoa, whoa.
possible to get pregnant without a
Huh?
man?
Yes.
I
All you
need a
need is
real
the
life
Y
example. I need a
chromosome.
real
Oh,
life
oh, look,
example.
look, 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 look,
I
look.
need a
Listen what
real
I'm
life
saying.
example.
All you need is the Y chromosome, right? Obviously, it's the Y chromosome from or the X, not just the Y, because the XY represents the male. The X chromosome and the Y chromosome is something totally different in and of itself. But when they're brought together, the genetic makeup that makes the woman the being that she is XX chromosome, DNA. The
Mm-hmm.
male is XY, DNA.
Uh-huh.
This is correct. Scientifically, it is proven that the X chromosome is older than the Y chromosome. The X
Mm-hmm.
chromosome is older. And this is why I'm saying while we're going over these things, it's good for us to pull it up while we're looking at it. And that's just the
Well, last
simplest,
time I
easiest
checked,
way for us
that
to
a
cross
woman
reference.
cannot get pregnant without a man. I mean, and even if now, unless you want to talk about sperm bank or whatnot, but even with that, you still need a man
All right, so
to make
that
make.
just goes back to whether you want to accept that or not.
I mean, you still need a man to make that happen, even if you don't do it a traditional way.
No, you need the ho. You need the. I gotta make this clear, sister. Gotta make this clear. You need the either a X or a Y chromosome from a male in order to make a seed. You don't need the male
That's what I'm
to
saying. You
make the
still need
seed.
a man.
Meaning you don't have to have sexual intercourse in the
That's
way
why
that we know sex.
I just said you don't have to do it nowadays. You don't have to do it a traditional way. You can go
Right,
to a bank and get
right.
the
So what?
male
So
sperm.
but see,
So
but when we
that
say
goes
right,
still need a man.
no, indeed. But what makes a man a man? What makes a man? And this is we talk about gender, correct? What makes a male or man a man or male? Let me say it that way. Is the XY chromosome. That's the XY chromosome. What makes the female gender is the XX chromosome. So I'm saying these things. We can pull up whether I'm saying what I'm saying correct about these chromosomes, whether they're right or wrong. The XX chromosome is older than the XY or the Y chromosome. So we're going to say the X chromosome itself is older than the Y chromosome. So
Well,
we
how
got an
can we prove
XX,
that to be?
huh?
How can we prove that to be?
Because it's already proven. It's genetically proven that the Y chromosome has less DNA, or what they call DNA strands, right, than the X chromosome.
Is that right? So how long has the
Yeah,
XY
look it up.
been
Ho. I'm not going to just say whether I'm right or wrong. Check it out. Look up XX and XY chromosome and what's the difference?
I mean, we
Because
know the
everything can
difference,
be
but
measured.
we trying to figure out.
No.
Okay,
In
so then
science,
let's
everything,
go to
look,
the chicken
everything
and
in
egg.
science.
Let's go
Listen to
to
what I'm
the.
saying, sister. Everything in science is measured through mathematics, correct?
I mean, yeah, mathematics play a very important role. Yes.
Okay, so through mathematics, we're able to do what? We're able to measure, weigh, outline,
Mm-hmm.
clarify, and define. You do all this through mathematics. We say science a lot, but we don't understand that mathematics is key here.
Oh
So
yeah.
through mathematics, mathematically it's proven. I'm just again, mathematically it's proven that the X chromosome, right? And I'm gonna just use this term because we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with units and amounts,
Mm-hmm.
is quantifiably
Mm-hmm.
greater than the Y chromosome based off the fact that it has more DNA makeup. In fact, most of our identity comes from the X chromosome. Again, whatever chromosome the male gives off to the female, it's either going to be another Y or another X. So everything that is needed, right? Because we talk like, oh, she ain't got the male, she can't produce. No, he has a certain part of his DNA that allows you what they call coagulation. So he has the electric spark
Okay,
that
hey
her
brother, I'm
magnetic
sorry,
needs.
I'm back. I
Okay,
got
oh, you
kicked
was
off.
going. It don't matter. I'm still speaking to the people. So
But
she
can you
receives
go
this
back over what you were
electric.
saying before I had got kicked off?
Oh, okay. So when we look again, it's mathematically we can prove when we're dealing with units, amounts, right, measurement, that the X chromosome is more developed than the Y chromosome. Period. You only get a male when there's an XY. You only get a female when there's an XX. Now here's the key: if there's not a female born in that family, the genetic line dies. So it's not that
Hey,
she
but the
can't
genetic
produce
line
without
would die if the
no.
male's not around either.
No, that's not a fact. If a daughter is not born into that tribe, the genealogy is dead. They trace it from the female. We still over here with this patriotic mindset.
No,
I'm
no, no,
talking
no,
about
no.
the
Hold
DNA.
on. Okay, now let's break down something.
We're
Can we
talking.
both
What I'm
hold on?
saying is,
Let me ask you this.
uh-huh,
Can we both agree that the mitochondrial DNA, right, is passed down from the woman to woman and also passed down to the male child? But only
yeah,
the
but we
female
just
child can pass down the mitochondrial DNA to
exactly.
Okay,
So
we
that
agree with
doesn't
that.
say something to you.
Right.
Think,
And
listen to
we
what
also
you just
can we
said.
also agree that the Y DNA is passed down from father to son, and the son passed down his Y
No,
DNA. So
no,
you don't
no,
agree that the Y DNA is not passed down from
no,
father to son?
no. The
Why is
male,
that?
the male. Listen what you're saying. Passed down from the father. No,
Right, that because the male carries the Y DNA.
no.
Women do not carry Y DNA.
Okay, but listen to how you state that. Passed down from the male to the female.
Right.
No,
No, no,
the,
no. I
no.
said no.
The
Listen,
male
listen.
carries.
Let me
Listen what I'm saying.
hold on. Relax.
Hmm.
Okay, let me repeat myself. The
Hmm.
mitochondrial DNA, right? The female carry mitochondrial DNA. Okay.
Yes,
And she can
correct.
pass it down to her daughter, and she can also pass down the mitochondrial DNA to her son.
Yes.
However, her daughter is the one that's going to be able to pass down the mitochondrial DNA down to her offspring. Yeah, because
Uh
her
huh.
son cannot pass down the mitochondrial DNA, although he may have it, but he can't pass it down because he has a Y chromosome. So
And
the
that
only
why
thing he can
listen.
pass, he can pass down his Y chromosome,
Hmm.
his Y DNA to his son, and his son can pass down his Y DNA to his offspring, to his male offspring. Okay, now you
But what
understand what I'm
about the
saying?
female? Now I understand what you're
No,
saying,
the
but what
female
happens
does
when
not
you get?
carry a Y
Oh,
DNA.
listen, ho. Listen, sister.
We do not
Listen what
carry
I'm
Y
saying.
DNA. We carry if we
Oh,
have two
ho.
X
No,
chromosome,
you
right?
could. No,
We don't carry a Y
listen.
DNA.
That's not what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying, right? When the sperm enters into the female, we know that the male gender he carries an XY,
Yes,
correct? So
yes.
when we procreate, when you and I'm gonna just say it like that. If you and I were to procreate, no disrespect, just an analogy example.
Mhm.
If you and I were to procreate, right,
Mhm.
and I was to ejaculate in you or whatever, I was to pass seed off into you, right, and you was to get
Mhm.
pregnant. The process of you, the starting process is either the father when he sends that sperm, right, that sperm is not deciding whether it is X or Y. It's
You
XY because it comes from a male. Now, when it gets deep into that womb, into that canal, when it starts to seek to breach that wall, right, where that congealed blood is already waiting. That seed, look this up, it's already there. She then sends out, right, her warriors, her magnet warriors, to attract
no, we
the
don't get our chromosomes
proper.
from our father.
No, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is he's either going to pass off the X or a Y.
Okay,
And that's not decided by him. It's decided by her. You get what I'm saying?
I'm listening.
Okay. I'm gonna say it again. When the semen enters into the womb, somebody please should be pulling this up because I know some intelligent people are listening. Right? When it enters into the womb and it takes on its journey and it gets to its destination, right?
Mhm.
It is nothing but spermatozoa. You just read it, sister. Correct. Now we understand what's inside of the sperm. Okay. What she does is she sends out a specific liquid that creates a wall. That wall is a magnet. It is designed to attract, right?
Mhm.
Only designed to attract a specific electrical spark that came from the spermatozoa. Now that electrical spark can either be another X or another Y. If it's another X, it automatically becomes a female. And obviously, if it's a Y that
Right.
he gives
Correct.
her,
Correct.
because she already crabbed exactly. So you
Okay. Yes.
understand what I'm saying now.
Right now,
Now in
if it
her
becomes a
womb, let's
Y,
say
if it
her
has an XY chromosome, it becomes a male.
exactly.
All right.
So he
So
doesn't pass
again,
anything over.
can we
Listen,
agree that the
how
Y
we
DNA?
oh, sis, let me finish what I'm saying. So what I'm
Go
saying
ahead.
here is once it gets to that point, once it meets its destiny, its journey, she decides. When I'm saying she, we talking about the XX,
Mhm.
right? That divine intelligence, right? When
Mhm.
it creates that wall, that magnetic wall, it decides which C or X or Y chromosome electrically is inclined or in line with it, or it doesn't receive it, or nothing happens. And then when your next menstrual cycle comes around, you release that which wasn't taken in. There's no harvest season. This is facts. So again, the male doesn't actually decide anything. It's all done in her womb, the Rahum, as he said in that same degree.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So now let's study your womb. Let's get into your womb. We always talking this patriotic, the male, this the male, they can't
Okay,
live
but
without the
no, you
male.
said you
Let's
disagree with
get
me about the Y DNA. Why would
No,
you
I
disagree
disagree
with me
with
about
you
the Y
because
DNA if you
you
just
said that
proved that
without
the
the
man
Y.
has a Y DNA?
No, because you're in a state of mind that this is impossible that the woman could not produce without the male at a point in
She
time.
cannot produce without the male. Okay, now let me
That's
ask you
right.
this.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no.
which one came
Listen to
first, the
what he
chicken or
said.
the egg?
Which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
The DNA, sister. Everything has to have a pattern. Like, what type of question is that? Like, a chicken
No,
is not
that's
a
the
chicken
reason why I'm
without its
asking that question.
DNA.
I'm trying to, because you said that the woman was here first. So now, which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
The woman who already had the egg.
No, I said
This is
chicken
what
or
I'm
the
telling
egg.
you.
So you telling
Okay.
me that the chicken came first. So how did the chicken get here?
By its DNA. So if the woman has XX DNA, that
So
means
how
that
did the woman
DNA is
get here?
older. Listen, sister. Since you asked that question, let me answer it, right?
Okay.
So with that XX chromosome, the
Mm-hmm.
XX chromosome is older than the XY sequence.
Okay,
That's
but how
another
did it get
factor.
here? That's the question. How did the
Well,
D?
how did our DNA get here? Well, it's proven
No,
that
how
part of
did the woman
well,
get here then?
well, the woman came from the stars. She tells you that.
She
Came from
came
the
from the
stars, came
stars.
into the, yes, from the ethers, yes. When we say
Oh
stars, we
wow.
talk about ethers because you know that the ethers are stars, right?
Uh huh. Uh
You
huh.
know that.
I hear you.
That's like listen to what I'm saying. That's like asking how you got here. Like think about that question, how you got here. Because
I
you
mean, I
asking
know
about
how
how
I
a
got
woman
here.
got
I
here.
came here through my mother and my father. It's
Okay.
my mother
You
and
came
father
here
that
through
brought
your
me here.
right. So how they got here?
They mother and they
Their
father.
mother and father. And they got here through their mother and their father. That's how she got here. The woman got here through her mother and father,
Okay, but
which
you
are
said
the
that she.
ethers, the
But wait a
heavens.
minute, now you contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not, sister. I'm
Yeah,
just
you
answering your
said that
question.
the woman got here through
The
the
specific
stars
woman,
and
right?
yeah,
The specific woman
through the
whose
stars and
genetic
whatnot,
gene,
right?
yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, and then you
And
said
I'm
the woman
saying,
was already here. Now you're saying that she got here through her mother and father. So which one is it?
well, actually, she would have to come through her mother and father. But now, if we go back to the beginning, right? If we're
Oh,
talking about, because you're asking me based off what Dr. Malachi is saying, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm answering according to Dr. Malachi's lessons. We ain't gonna stray away from the topic. So the topic is how did she get here? I told you that she came from the stars, which are ethers. You said, oh, I said, oh, this is unbelievable. Yet you look at a sun right here. So I asked you how you got here. You said through your mother and father. How they got here? Through their mother and father. The thing is, if you keep going, right? We were genetically proved because we have Lucy. We can trace back how far back DNA goes. Now they even have older records of people. But most cultures, if not all, say that they had a descent from the skies or the heavens, whatever we call it today, into the waters of this earth. Even the Bible shows you that. The Quran shows you that, etc., etc. So all cultures speak of this, right? That we existed on a higher spiritual level. So when it says that the female was here first, yes, her genetic manifestation, her physical form and manifestation was here first. That's why everything on this earth has more feminine energy than anything. Because we're now entering back into a feminine cycle of energy. Not to be confused with this sensationalism, masculine and feminine, alpha and all this other stuff. Right? So we're talking specifically on the genetics, how her genetics got here. All cultures, past and present, say the same thing. Now we take science, what they modern science, today's science have proven. We have the XX and the XY DNA. It's proven scientifically. Somebody call me out and prove me wrong if what I'm saying not wrong. It's not matter whether it sound correct. We have to check into it to make sure it's correct or not. Not what it sounds like, not what we've been illogically taught over the years. So obviously there's more we have to study and know about this. But just looking at your own womb, sister, understanding and knowing how your womb works would tell the difference between the two, or who got here first. Like, I mean, but to answer it according to what he's saying, I'm telling you that we identify, like our ancestors identified, that we came from the stars into the waters, grew out of the waters. Hence, you got all this mermaid stuff, all these different things, extraterrestrial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which these are the terms that is used today. But it's a clear stated fact. You see our ancestors coming out of the water. Where did Rod evolve from?
I
Where did
mean, well, we
Ptah
all
evolve from?
consist of water. We all got water. We got cells. We got tissue
No,
in
no, no,
us,
no, no, no,
bacteria.
no,
We
no,
all
no,
consist of that.
no, 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 sister. All water is not the same. When you say that, The water we have in
So
our
you
body
don't
is
think
not like the water
we
that.
ain't got water in
Oh,
us?
listen, sister. But you saying that like just oh, it's general. Yeah, we all got water. No, the water in our body is not like the water that's in the seas today. It's a different structural system. The plasma and everything in our body is different. So we're talking about systems now, right? States and systems. So if we don't understand the systems, how are we going to be talking about the science or anything else about it? The system has a structure. Nothing just happens. Everything comes into existence from its origin, from its point, and then it grows into whatever it's going to be, right? So to ask, oh, where did she come from? Where do you think she came from?
I'm asking you. I told you the answer.
Well, I answered your question. You ain't accepted the answer. That's the difference here. You
No,
didn't
you was
accept the answer.
contradicting. You was contradicting
No, no,
yourself.
no, no. That's how I know you didn't accept the answer. No, I
No,
answered
you
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 the
said one thing,
first
then
one.
you said another thing.
Okay, tell me what I said.
First, you said
You
that she
revisit it
came
right
from
quick.
the. You said she came from the stars,
No. You said who was here first. I said the woman.
and then I
Correct.
said, and then I asked you about the
Where did he
chicken
come
and
from?
egg.
No. Hold. But you asked me before that. You said where did she come from, right?
Right.
And then I said
You said she
she
came
came
from
from
the
the
stars.
stars. Which
Yes,
and hold, I didn't just say the stars. Let's say what I said. I said she came from the stars. Those stars are ethers,
that's what you
right?
said.
Okay, and entered into the waters, which is another form of ethers,
No, you
another
just said
gaseous
about the
element.
water. You said that she came from
Yes,
the
I did.
ether, and
No.
then you said that
Sister,
she
you got
already
replay
been
on your
here.
joint? Oh, do you have
Then you said
replay?
she already been here. Then you said that she
Sister,
came from her
hold,
mother
sister.
and father.
Hold on, sister. That was just us going back and forth because you asked the question. I thought the question was just like, huh? But anyway, do you have replay? Because you said I didn't say something. That would be a farce because I know the process. At least what I understand to be the process. At least what I know science has proven it.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you
Hmm.
this. Let's talk
Hmm.
about the plant of Nibiru, or Nibiru.
The better.
Yeah.
Okay. Planet of the Crossing. It's just a title. But go ahead. Hmm.
Okay. What about it? Go. Give me some
And know
explanation.
that there's different. Know that there's different Nibiru's. Well, I just gave you the answer. The word Nibiru. Look it up. See, we gotta get accustomed to studying
Okay.
research.
Okay. Now let's look up what Nibiru is.
Uh-huh.
Let's look
Planet of the
up
Crossing.
Nibiru.
Nibiru, right.
Okay. Let's
And
look.
no, and I'm telling you now that there's more than one what they would call Nibiru or the planet ship, planet of the crossing of the skies. His God came down in the Bible, and we could say it's mythical or whatever, but he said he hovered over the waters.
Okay.
But
Okay. Hold on.
Nibiru, uh-huh,
Let's look up
Nibiru,
Nibiru.
which the ancient Babylonians, the ancient Sumerians, the Egyptians, etc., all identify with what they would call today UFOs, spaceships, or whatever. It's just
Okay.
another
Okay.
form
So
of
check
saying
this
a
out.
spaceship.
So check this
Hmm.
out. Watch this. Nibiru, the
Hmm.
non-existent planet. It says, linked to the close of the Mayan calendar, a variety of rumors spreading regarding ways the world could end back in 2012. One
Say that
popular
again.
theory was Nibiru, a supposed planet that some claim would coincide with Earth at the end of that year. But
Uh
despite the
huh.
buzz, there's no scientific evidence supporting the alleged planet's existence. And of course, our planet survived 2012 without absorbing a massive impact.
Okay, you read that from what?
Oh, this comes from space.com.
Okay, space.com. So we got space.com refuting a planet called Nibiru, which I just told you it's not an actual planet, but it's so large, so they call it the planet ship,
Oh,
Nibiru.
and let me
So
show
you
you where
got,
it
oh,
comes from.
sister, you
Hold on,
got
let me show you what
scholars,
it comes from.
right?
Wait a minute, hold on real quick. It said the story
Mm-hmm.
began in 1976 when Zacharias Sitchin wrote The
Mm-hmm.
12th Planet, a book which used stitchings on unique translation of Sumerian cuneiform to identify a planet Nibiru orbiting the sun every 3,600 years. Several years
Mm-hmm.
later, Nancy Leader, a self-described psychic, announced that the aliens she claimed to channel had warned her this planet would collide with Earth in 2003. After a collision-free year, the date was moved back to 2012, which it was linked to the close of the Mayan long count period.
Okay. So you talking about the total destruction of the planet Earth, like this
So this
conversation right here. Okay,
Oh.
let's just deal with Nibiru, right? Because you
Mhm.
mentioned Zachariah system. Well, they use Zachariah system.
Mhm.
First of all, let's go to the walls, because before we got any written documents, let's go to the walls, right? Let's go to the people who instructed the idea, because that's not something that Zachariah system made up. That's something that he discovered in studying the cuneiform, which is another dialect or language in and of itself, right? Which means cuneiform is just the French term, Latin French, which means wedged in. So it's a type of script, right? Which was closely related to the Canaanite script. So his ability, knowing the ancient Canaanite dialects and being able to identify certain root words in what they call the cuneiform, he was able to identify what these things were saying, right? Taking us back to linguistics. But beyond that, on the walls, one thing about Zachariah Sitchin, as he spoke on it or built on it, again, he shows you the pictures, the depictions. Now, we could say, oh, it's mythology, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. But we can't say that, again, this is something he made up. He didn't. It's on the walls. The actual entities, the names Anu, Inky, Enlil, etc., these people are actually on the walls. The images are actually on the walls. Now, if we want to say, if you want to say, oh, that's just mythology, cool. But to say that it was made up out of his own mind, his iteration of it, is wrong and it's a lie. And it's the key to why this scientific community continues to mislead us by not telling us the facts of the matter. Now, if you go get any Zachariah Sitchin book yourself, you will see exactly what I'm saying. Not what some scientists are saying off in the cut somewhere about 2012 and Socratically. No, that's not how that works. And in our culture, when we talk about the death of something or the destruction of the world, we wasn't talking about the total destruction of planet Earth. We talk
Mhm.
about the destruction. We talk about the energy change, right? This is a fact, like seasons, right? The energy changes during each season, doesn't it?
You
This is
said
documented.
what? What you say now?
I said, when we talk about the Mayan long count calendar, because they weren't the only ones that spoke about what they call doomsday, because the Mayans never terminalized that. They talked about what they talked about it is in death we see the resurrection. We gotta know the culture of the people. We can't be quoting them by what somebody else said they said. Go and read their scripts. Go and sit amongst them people. See, this is something that York did though. He went amongst these people.
So he
He
went
didn't
amongst
write
the
about.
Mayan people.
Yes. This man
Oh.
is versed in over 19 languages. Not
Oh.
fake.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. Not fake. Not he's saying this, it's proven. He's a linguist. Look him up. He's in record. People say, oh, he's not a doctor. Why he's not? Look him up. Oh, because he didn't get a doctorate over here in America. He didn't get a linguistic degree over here in America. He's not this, he's not that. But it's the only man I see speaking Arabic fluently, Aramaic fluently. I never seen one of their scholars step out there and defruit it.
Wow.
Show me
Okay.
one.
All right.
Show me one. No.
Let me ask
Okay,
you
right.
one last question. Okay.
Yes, yes.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Well, actually, two questions. The first
Mm-hmm.
question I want to ask you is about the reptilian brain.
Okay.
That's the first
What
one, the
about it?
reptilian brain. Let's go into
What
that
about it?
bill. What about
Yes.
the reptilian brain? Because I know
Showing
you.
that it's the oldest part of the brain hemisphere. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
saying you saying about it, you got to ask me something about it. What is it you seeking to know,
I mean, like
or
what?
you know you
Okay,
want to tell me?
what was so significant about the teaching of the reptilian brain?
Because this defines and describes the nature of the energy, so that you can see it. A reptile is not like a human, correct? We all have different characteristics because we're built up of different energy. So that reptilian energy, which is proven that reptiles have different natures than us,
Mm-hmm.
correct? With warm mammal beings. A mammal could either be on what? On earth or in the water. Keep that? You know you're a mammal, right? Or what
Yeah,
they
of
consider
course.
under their scientific. Mammals can be in water and on land, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know a whale is a mammal. You know a dolphin is a mammal. These
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
entities
yeah,
will
yeah.
stay down. Okay, okay. All right.
Mhm.
So let's stick to the script. So when we look at these things again, we keep saying what they said. That said, no. Research these people. What did these people say?
Mhm.
Right? So call up a Mayan, research Mayan history institutes. They got them, and ask them, what do you say about your Mayan long count? And what is the meaning of the world is going to come to an end at this certain date and time? And see what they say. See if what he's saying, and you could take one of his books or whatever, because he's not the only. And I want to point out, Dr. York is not the only one who's been saying these things. People said it before him, Some are now saying it after him, and there was others during his time that was saying these things. So when Elijah Muhammad was talking about the mothership, which is in the middle, he's lying. When you got Farrakhan today talking about the mothership coming back, Jesus, these people are lying. These are your leaders. These are the people who we praising up. So are they lying? Are they plagiarizing? We accept everything that they say to be fact and no research, no background check.
I don't
Oh, okay.
accept
They
it.
don't. Huh?
You might accept it, but I
No,
don't
no, no.
accept
I'm just speaking in general. I'm
it.
just speaking. But my point is, what I'm showing you is that Dr. York is not the only one who has said these things. The difference is he was able to go into it, break it down, and show forth and prove it through language, signs, and symbols. He walked through all the schools of Freemasonry, all the way to the highest order of the Shrinerdom. Is recognized and ordered. You know what they did down in Georgia? You know the whole situation with between the Sabians or the Nuwapians down in Georgia? It had nothing to do with Dr. York's per se.
Okay,
Of
so
course,
what they got to do with the reptilian brain?
well, the reptilian brain, I just answered the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is the oldest part of the human brain or human mind hemisphere. That's what the reptilian brain. Then I explained why we characterize it the reptilian brain based off the study and nature of its characteristics. So you would call that a reptilian. A reptilian has certain behaviors that go with it, right? You ever witnessed a reptilian? Reptilians are what we call the lowest of animalistic nature, very instinctive. No high intelligence. They don't speak, they don't talk, but they act. They eat, right? They birth, they do all these things, but they have a very aggressive nature, very cold nature. They're very isolated from others, so they call it the reptilian brain, right? Which happens to be on this side of the universe, the oldest aspect of the brain or the lower brain. Hence, we say higher, lower self. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
And
hate
it's proven that if we go through all the compartments of the brain, each part, which actually our being lines up with the nine principles of our nine deities from
you.
Sabat, right? Our nine deities, or if you want to say the 12 Sabat and Sahu, right? 12 from Sahu, 12 from Sabat, right? But anyway, which brings us back to the 24. We live on 24 seconds, planet 24. We go through a cycle of 24,000 or 25,000 years. This is just a fact. We're talking cycle ages, scientifically proven. They'll tell you this also. So when we're talking about the reptilian, it's clear and honest that the reptilian, who also came from the water, has the oldest species on the earth other than we Nubians. In fact, our DNA and their DNA is so closely linked that they still haven't been able to define where the split came. But I'm telling you, because Dr. York taught me, once we came out of the waters, then the splits began.
Mm. Okay.
Mhm.
So now let me ask you, what about this concept of the pickle
And
man?
then there's reptilians, actual physical reptilians throughout this universe.
Okay, now let me ask you, what about the pickle man?
The pickle man,
Yeah.
well, the pickle man, a pickle is generally green, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know the pickle man is an old story. Research it. It's not something Malachi made up. He started using it as a joke to combat the people who was making up the story during the Answer of Our community that the little green man and all that would come and visit your room and all that. These were stories that was made up due to the detractors during the time when we was under the school of the Answer of Our community. So the pickle man has no real reference. But then you have the pickle man when he's defining in one of his books, they took it out of the book and was talking about the pickle man again, right? We understand that the science of imagery, correct? Seeing something as opposed to somebody just telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
Imagery plays a major part with the subconscious, right? So he used the image of an actual pickle in the shape, form, or whatever, right? So people took that. It was like, oh, the pickle man. He said that there's a certain species of pickle man. Yeah, but now on Earth and beyond Earth, they're discovering all type of species that they didn't even know exist. But the pickle man thing is actually just an on-running joke. You could get the book and then you can read and understand exactly what the science of what he's talking about with the pickle man. You may have already read it, but to
Okay.
denounce everything he's saying about that topic, because you know that's a term he actually used. So that's not something somebody came up with. It's the stories that came after, right? The jokery, the foolery. Oh, the pickle man, this down the third, right? Okay. But yeah, that's just more distraction. Has no weight, means nothing.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you
I appreciate you, sister. And
for the
again, I
dialogue.
appreciate. Hmm.
Um, this has been quite interesting and quite entertaining. But I
Hmm.
really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good one. All right. And be safe. Peace.
You too. Peace. Accept.
All right.
Wadu.
All right then.
Ashok.
All right. Peace. Oh boy. All right. Well, that was interesting, y'all. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. So until next time, y'all take it easy on yourselves and be safe. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoying it. I hope you guys had some form of entertainment behind that. Until next time, peace and power and elevation be to all of you. So this your girl Tiffany, and I will check in with y'all again. All right, peace.